Hello and welcome to Mr. Ridley's Design and Technology Subject Knowledge, and this clip is number 2 and it is about plastics processes. By the end of this clip you should be able to understand the 3 ways that plastic products are shaped, be able to explain the differences between vacuum forming and injection molding processes, and you should be able to answer other questions about manufacturing plastic products. Vacuum forming. You may have used a vacuum forming machine to manufacture parts for in projects like the maze game, and we're going to look at this and 2 other plastic shaping processes. Vacuum forming. Vacuum forming shapes thermoplastics such as HIPS and PVC. It generally produces hollow shapes, and it is ideal for batch production or mass production processes, and it produces accurate and consistent shapes using a mold. Vacuum forming advantages: it is a low cost process, it is quick, so suited for mass production. Upper molds can add extra detail if necessary. The disadvantage are that it's normally only a single thickness, so there's only one thickness, and deep molds can result in the walls becoming quite stretched, and it's limited to simple or certain shapes, which we'll look at later. Vacuum forming is limited to producing basic hollow shapes. So if we look at this shape here, the yellow shape here is an ideal vacuum forming shape, and the reason for that is that it has a 10-degree release angle. So this angle in here is just slightly exaggerated here, needs to be included in any shape of any product that's vacuum formed. This means that only certain shapes are possible with vacuum forming. So if we look at these shapes, try and think which of these shapes you think would be suitable for vacuum forming molds. Some of them couldn't be because the mold itself, the molding wouldn't release from the mold. So number 1 is not suitable. Number 2 would be suitable. Number 3 is not suitable. Number 4, as we looked at that's an ideal shape for a vacuum forming mold. Number 5, it would be a problem because it actually undercuts here, so that wouldn't. And number 6 may work but generally won't, especially as they get taller. So those are the vacuum forming molds. Vacuum forming molds need a release angle to work properly. Vacuum forming. So here we can see the process of vacuum forming, and there's a flow chart along the bottom here showing the stages. So first of all, we start with a sheet of thermoplastic material, and we have a mold, and we have a bed which has holes in it for air to be sucked out. The plastic is heated, it's put in the machine, the heat is pulled across, the plastic is heated. Because it's a thermoplastic, it softens, and then air is sucked out from underneath, and the mold and bed are raised, and a pump sucks the air out from below. Then the sheet is allowed to cool and can be removed from the mold and the vacuum former. And then we can see the molded sheet being removed from the mold. So that is vacuum forming. That is the process of vacuum forming. Injection molding. Now the mazes in this picture, these are made from the same material as the vacuum forming. They're made from HIPS, but they've been manufactured using a process called injection molding. Now injection molding is a different process. It is used to make more complex 3D shapes such as toys, electronic product casings and kitchen equipment. Here are some products that have all been injection molded. The advantages: very complex forms can be produced, high volumes can be produced, so it can be mass produced, and the product can be brightly coloured. The disadvantages are the molds are very expensive to produce. They are split steel molds, so the initial setup costs are high, and some very, very complex shapes are impossible to mold. So that is injection molding. Now here is the process of injection molding. If we look at the process here, the same thing. There's a flow diagram down the bottom here. This is a sectional view, so it's showing the machine cut away. The blue is the plastic, the thermoplastic granules. Could be a material such as HIPS. Again, these granules are fed into a hopper. The granules are heated, and this screw, this is called an Archimedean screw. Now, as it turns, it moves the granules past these two heaters that surround this pipe, and the plastic ends up in this area here, and it's molten. It's become so hot that it is liquid. Then a hydraulic pump pushes this whole part forward, which injects the plastic into the split steel mould. And here we see another picture of a split steel mould, and this red chest piece is the piece that's being made. This is a steel mould called the die sometimes, and this final object is then ejected. Quite often there's a pin that just pushes the product out, and then the whole cycle goes again. That's injection moulding. The advantage of injection moulding: this 3D plastic maze shows the shapes and details that can be added to injection moulded parts, which would not be possible with other processes like vacuum forming. So you can see that this product here, which can be made by injection moulding, couldn't be made by vacuum forming. So that is the difference between injection moulding and vacuum forming. Now we're going to look at one other process, and this is blow moulding. This is used to make hollow objects, usually low price hollow objects such as bottles and containers like these. It is very quick. It rapidly produces hollow objects with narrow necks, e.g. bottles, and at high rates for production. So it's a mass production process. Again, the moulds are very expensive and the machines are very expensive, so setup costs are high, and generally there's a poor quality surface finish, and it can only be used. So if you look at the surface on these products, they're generally quite rough, not shiny, and it's limited to making products that are hollow with a thin wall. Basically how this process works is there's an extruder where plastic is fed down, and an item called a parason comes down, which is basically a tube. As it extends down, the two sides of the mould close in on it, so the mould close, trapping the bottom of the parason, and you often see this on a little mark on the bottom, a witness mark on the bottom of a bottle. If you look in a water bottle, you'll see where this actually traps it here, and then air is blown in from the top, inflating the parason like a balloon until it conforms to the shape of the mould. Once that happens, the mould is cooled, releasing it, the mould opens, the bottle or the product falls out. And here's a picture there of the split steel mould for this particular water bottle. So that is blow moulding. Okay, thank you for watching Mr. Ridley's